It's my very first time doing a podcast, so I'm a podcast virgin. So
Really?
I'm taking
All
your.
right. All right. Sounds good. Um, I don't know. I mean, I have like a bunch of notes that we can dive into, and or if you have, I'm sure you have stuff you want to talk about. I could literally read anything you write for a very long time. You're a very eloquent writer.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I feel like this conversation is long overdue, just because you and I have been following each other for such a long time.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I've been asked to do podcasts in the past. I just haven't felt ready. But
I get that.
I feel like it's because I haven't found the right people. And with you, it's like we're vibing. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so I have what I have right here is it's called Iraqi. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like a
I have not
great.
heard of it.
Right. So I'm from Greece. And it's basically aged raki. So the pure form is a mixture of vodka and a bunch of stuff I don't really know. But this one is probably 20 years old and it kind of tastes like whiskey. So that was the closest thing that I had.
Hey.
Yeah, I didn't have monkey shoulder around.
Yeah, I
So
know. It's very particular. I got this at the beginning of quarantine. I found it in quarantine, and I was lucky enough. And I'm talking about it mostly because I'm very surprised that they responded on Instagram, but also because it's very very good. But yeah, at the beginning
that's
of
the thing.
quarantine,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
and
If they are to sponsor you, we can do a round two. That's the thing. That's
yeah,
it.
all right.
Cool. Yeah. Let's dive into it. I feel like we have
Let's
lots to talk about.
let's get into it. I usually do like a little intro, but I think I'm going to start it with the explaining the drinks. I like that. I think that fits better.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think I should send some over to you. It's very peculiar, but I have a feeling you're going to like it.
I have a feeling I probably will too. All right. Well, shit, man. Dune is finally here.
Hmm.
Finally, after, I mean, it's supposed to come out November of last year or whatever. I don't know the
Yeah,
actual, I can't remember.
yeah, we've been talking about it for a while. And how long have we been following each other? Probably over a year
I
now.
probably, yeah, probably around that. I honestly, there are some pages I feel like I've been following for like 2, 3 years. I've had this page for almost, I think this next March is going to be 5 years, which is like
Oh wow.
a pretty big investment at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean
So
you're in for the long term.
yeah.
Are you
But yeah,
are you
probably
planning
around then.
anything big? Like do you have an anniversary date? Because I don't.
Yeah, actually, I do.
You do?
Because it was at the time I thought it was so like it was a big deal. I mean, it was my first semester at college, so starting it then, it was like, all right, here we go. And then I remember the day it's March 1st. It's what are you gonna
March
do?
1st. It's a great date. What do you
Yeah,
have
not
planned?
bad.
I feel like you have something planned, like a 5-year
Oh,
anniversary.
I actually hadn't considered it for the 5 year. I have to plan something, obviously, but I think that the podcast helps with that, and having people on
Mhm.
and talking about that stuff. So yeah, but now I'm going to plan something for 5 years.
You're gonna have to because I just asked you. So
Yeah.
no,
How about
I'm
you?
just
How long have you been doing that?
well, I don't have a date, that's for sure. And people always ask
Yeah.
me, and I think I like to say 2017 is when I actually started because that's when my first post actually came about.
Mhm.
But I've been taking breaks on and off, to be honest with you, just because, and I'm sure you can relate, it can be quite draining to actually write about stuff because it's one
Oh yeah.
thing to do news, as in like, oh, this film just came out, let's talk about it. And another thing to
Mhm.
actually go back to a specific film that you saw probably 10 years ago and try to talk about the final scene, which is what I usually write about.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I was just looking at the number of posts the other day just because I had someone DM me and being like, oh, I just watched the Wolf of Wall Street, and I would like to hear your thoughts on the final scene. But at the same time, I know you have 450 posts and I don't want to go through every
Yeah.
single one of them. And I was like, I feel you. That's a very thoughtful message. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a specific posting cadence.
Mhm.
These days I feel like I am a bit more active just because there were certain things that happened in my life these past 18 months, and I'm sure you can relate, that kind of really urged me to think about specific things that are not quite working in our community,
Mhm.
where I'm like, okay, you have this platform, you talk about final scenes in films and sometimes television, and that's great. But I've been having these discussions with people and also with myself in terms of, okay, what can I do to start conversations about the things that really matter, right?
Mhm.
So we can talk about like cinephiles and film bros and like what does film criticism look like, and how often should we be posting about, and what kind of films should we be talking about. So I have to say, like, I'm going through some sort of existential crisis when it comes to my page. So and I would love to hear your thoughts on this in terms of how you navigate that. But I've taken this executive decision to no longer be posting about final scenes only, because I feel like that kind of constrains me in a way,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I had someone tell me that, hey, you've done such a great job in terms of building that platform, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in that specific format for the rest of your life. So that's what I'm trying to rethink now. I wish I had a better way of explaining where I'm going with the page, and I've been thinking about other platforms, um, because I work on social media marketing in
Yeah.
general. That's my actual job. But you know, you think about starting a YouTube channel in 2021, does it make sense? Do I want to go on TikTok? Probably not. Do I want to start a podcast in 2021? Is that even relevant? So yeah, I don't know. I would love to hear about your journey, because you're doing so many things at the same time, and I'm always such in awe of you, like, oh my god, how does he actually do it? So yeah, I don't know. I would just love to hear more about that.
That's I think that every question you just asked before is a question I've asked over like the last particularly 2 years, because the
Mhm,
start of 2020, that's when I started my YouTube channel. And I was
mhm,
doing I had a whole calendar ready for reviews that I wanted to put up in videos, and then movie theaters closed down, and I was like, well, shit, what no one goes to watch you, like, go on a hike or whatever people on YouTube do, where they film themselves doing shit, and no one gives a shit. No one cares. Like, if they're going to you, it's because of the only anchor that they have is the movie stuff. So
yeah.
and then I was very spacey on that, and then around the end of last year, I knew I wanted to do something more just long format. So like with the
Mhm,
podcast and talk with people, and majority of the time I'm talking to myself, but every once in a while I like to have someone on, which is cool.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, and that's kind of like the next part of that investment. But in particular, talking about the evolution of like what the kind of content you want to put up, because I agree. I think compared to most people, you in particular genuinely put up content. Like the pieces of writing you put up are it's more than the average, I think, than most people put up on any social media. It's very interesting. So
thank you.
I was originally a DC Comics page like 4 or 5 years ago. I was very Batman and all that, and
Mhm.
I knew, I was like, all right, well, that is constraining. You can't. There's other stuff everyone wants to talk about. I mean, there's the whole idea of you're going to get more people to look at your stuff, but also you kind of want to talk about more. There's more to. I mean, there's a whole fucking world of it to be able to talk about. So slowly, kind of uh, moving out of that, and then once I found the idea like that, the shtick of sticking to talking about movies or pop culture in general has felt more of like a comfortable atmosphere to be in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I really like that, because the thing is, you can I think you and I have been in this for such a long time, and we can see the big picture. And at the end of the day, as you said, if you were to take a step back
Mhm.
and give yourself one goal, and that is to grow the page, like quote unquote, like you could just
Mhm.
post about parenting all day long, right? And like
Oh yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
page would just explode, right? You can just talk about, I don't know, the Godfather every single day, and you could see the numbers going up. And the thing is, I feel like you and I have made this decision of like being like, we love some of these films, right? I freaking love Fight Club. Yeah, I'm not afraid to
Yeah.
admit,
Oh.
like, I feel like it's a great film. Like, sure, call me a film bro. I don't care. But at the end of the day, we feel like we have something to say. And I think in your, I don't know, I can't speak for you, but I feel like in terms of the output that I have received from you, it's very refreshing because you're not afraid to go where people are not quite willing to go. And if you see the super big pages right now on Instagram, you can see how, like, the reason they're so big, it's because they have zero, what's the word? They don't have an actual say in what they're posting, right?
Mhm.
It's just like factual. Here are the 5 things that happened behind the scenes of that one film that everyone knows about. So there's
Yeah.
not like some sort of editorial control happening, which is, I feel like it's what's happening with you and I. And obviously, and I'm sure you're no stranger to this, you're going to be exposed to a certain level of, one, criticism, which is fair, and I'm here for it. And that's the reason I have the page. Number two, no, not everyone is going to like you. And I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
fine, right? Because if you're for everyone, you're for no one, correct? So you have to
Exactly.
just feel like, this is the platform that I have and I'm running it. And you and I also put our some of our personal lives, on our stories, and we kind of try to tell that story as well, and people can relate to that. And that's good enough for me, because I have people asking me, okay, what is it that you want to get out of this page in the long term? Do you want to monetize it? Like, do you want to establish like connections with film studios and all of that? And I'm like, one, I don't feel like monetizing it is a way to go for me. I'm not doing this for that reason in particular. I'm not here to sell, iced tea on
Yeah.
my stories. That's not the vibe that I'm going for. And number two, I, at the end of the day, because this is a side hustle for me, this is a hobby of mine, I'm not doing this for an actual living. I want to make sure I enjoy what I'm putting out there. So it starts with like, if I put something out there and it doesn't resonate, but at the same time you enjoy the process of actually
Yeah.
putting it out there, is that good enough? So this is where I've landed, and I would say, yeah, of course, I have ambitions, and there are things that I want to achieve. So you've seen how I've covered London Film Festival in the past few weeks, and then I did Sundance before that, and I'm going to be doing Rain Dance in a couple of weeks. So I really love this aspect of using that, I don't want to say platform, but yeah, I have to say I have an ulterior motive, right? Like, I'm using the number of followers that I
Yeah.
have in order to get access to these film festivals. And I had no idea that I could actually get access to them, but
Yeah.
numbers, I don't know, make a difference these days, I guess. So I would say, like, if I were to say I have this one goal, for me, it's to get myself into these communities that right now, I have to say, specifically in the film industry um, space, they feel kind of elitist in a way, where it's
Mhm.
like they're quite exclusionary. You have the film critics has been like, oh, this is our, like, it's very gay, like, I don't know, I have very strong thoughts about it. So I'm like,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah, so how do I enter myself into that conversation to just try to give my take on films that, one, don't have like a super A-list cast, right? Because the French Dispatch is going to get like so much press without, you or I. Like, they don't need it.
Yeah.
Like, Wes
Yeah.
Anderson doesn't need us. Like, there are other films that I feel like they have something to say, and they're not getting quite the attention that they get. um and that's something that I've been grappling with, which I know, like, you and I come from very different, not say backgrounds, but like, I feel like I was much more into the DC Marvel uh, craze a few years back. And actually, I'm not sure this is something that you know about me, but I used to work in film marketing. So my client used to be Warner Brothers. So I used to have to deal with the Snyder like super
Oh
fans
boy.
every single day. So I feel like this has kind of caused a PTSD. Where I'm like, I don't want to get
That's
scared
hilarious.
out. Even though I love I don't know. I guess now I'm
I get it. Believe me, I get it. Yeah.
yeah, like I have thoughts about Snyder, but
Yep.
I feel like I would have enjoyed his output and Warner Brothers output in general much more if it weren't for the like the hardcore fan base that he
Yeah.
has. So now I feel like yeah, I'm leaning more towards the I don't know why, but it kind of it's quite compelling to me, the indie film space,
Yeah.
just because I feel like there's something there that is quite interesting. That said, I have also very strong opinions about what art house feels like, because you know how there are some films where like, oh my god, you're so up your own ass, like
Oh yeah.
like that
That's
doesn't make
hilarious.
any fucking sense. So I want to find that kind of balance, but I don't know, what was your question? I just kind of went
I can't
off.
remember either, but
Right.
I just enjoyed listening to you. But yeah, absolutely. There's that whole level of I mean, it's more than a genre at this point. It's like
Mhm.
stepping further back from a genre, and there are these new confined spaces of a type of filmmaking and a type of audience, you
Yeah.
know, that is
Uh,
just, I mean, it's more polarizing all because of the internet and the easy access, and that's how it's growing like a weed.
mhm. Mhm. So I mean, that's more of a question for you, even though I know you're the host. But like I have like as you were talking, I was thinking, um, because you talk to people online all the time as well, and I was wondering, where do you see the opportunity when it comes to like specific film communities online right now? What do you see them wanting more and more? Because the thing is, as we said, it's one thing to just give people a bunch of movie reviews, right? Because that's
Yeah,
what people want to hear. People want to hear your take on
exactly.
like No Time to Die. Like they want to do that. But like, where do you actually see meaningful gaps online where you would like to do more of in terms of actually having a healthy conversation about specific things? Is it something that you're like, oh, it's weird that all of these people are asking me this one thing and no one is actually talking about them? Like, that's what I'm trying to answer right
Yeah,
now for
yeah,
me.
I get that. Yeah, I think that goes and that plays into the part of um oh God, don't space out now. It's the idea of giving, of the talking about the indie stuff, or talking about the less populated topics, that kind of, when the lane of that starts from the ground and starts
Mm-hmm.
building upward, it's almost like the like a franchise that goes too long. You know what I mean? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a I'm pulling this analogy out of nowhere, but it's like the start of something small budget, and because it taps into something that starts a fire, then suddenly it's like, all right, let's funnel all the resources towards that, and then it becomes its own kind of uh, what it was differentiating itself from before. You know what I mean? It's like
Mm-hmm.
the Paranormal Activity franchise, where
Yeah.
I bring this idea up so much, but it's like the first movie had like a $13,000 budget, and then it made like hundreds of millions, and it had the largest gap in between gross and what they had, and then there's like, 8 more that have like $100 million budgets, are up there, and they're terrible, and the quality is worse for it. You know what I mean? Like it poisons itself like that, and that happens to like a fandom too. There can be people who were, they gatekeep, and like exactly that, the idea of it's like a self-checking to a point of like self-sabotage almost when it comes, especially for fandoms, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's because when we think of fandoms, I think it's interesting because you have so many different kinds. You have the studio level, almost like Marvel fans. Then you have genre like maybe you have A24, you have action, I don't know, Bond fans, you have all of these different kinds. So I think obviously you mostly cover yeah, that kind of like world that's, I would say it's quite popular. So you talk a lot about, let's say, The Boys, right? Or
Yeah.
Eternals, right? But I feel like you bring this interesting and fresh take on these things where it's like you report quote unquote the news, but then you also have like the hot take, right? That
Yeah.
a lot of people are not actually ready to go there. And I don't know, based on the feedback that you've received, I don't know about you, but I felt that people actually following 2020, they are ready to have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
That they're a bit more uncomfortable or a bit unconventional. So I I would love to see where that kind of, I would say, industry landscape takes us in a couple of years from now. Because yeah, how do you talk about a film like Eternals today
Yeah.
in a way that's like hasn't been told before 500 million times because it's
Exactly. It's
Marvel,
so
right?
it's it's not even just like the concept of like analysis. I mean, like the way you pieced it apart the other day is so intersectionalized at this point that um the way what it always was about me was I there was always it's that like that feeling of being in a room full of adults when you're a kid and you say something that kind of makes sense, but they don't listen because they're adults and you're a kid. It's that thing of like, it's just stuff I've wanted to say. Why is no one asking this question or talking about this? Why didn't it was very, I mean, it comes from a very like a very narcissistic place of being like, oh, people should hear my idea, you know? But
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
But at the same time, I
it's
get
that,
it. I get it. Yeah, I get it. I think
yeah,
something
exactly. I mean, it definitely has, it builds off of that idea of I have something of worth to say, and whether I think where it differentiates from like the snootiness of a critic, you know, that person that feels in their heart that they're a critic, it comes with that level of this is just my piece, I'm putting it out there. If you don't like it, I get it, because I feel like there's even a part of me that whenever I put something out and it's like considered a hot take, or someone, if I get like paragraphs in the DMs from somebody, I'm there's which happens all the time. There's part of me that's like, hey man, I get it, I understand. I'm sure that if I were you, this would annoy the fuck out of me too.
Well, that's the thing. This is why I feel like we need to interrogate what a film critic looks like and sounds like these days, because what I'm seeing very often is that when someone critiques a film, they come from a space of, as you said, like authority almost, where it's like, I found Blade Runner 2049 boring.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not saying everyone, that's not, these are not my words. I love Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Like someone might say that, but you hear a lot of people, a lot of critics saying Blade Runner 2049 is boring.
Yeah.
So even that kind of like change in terms of position,
it's an objective view.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're not important enough to impose your own worldview on someone else. So there is a very big difference in saying, yeah, I hated the French Dispatch, which I didn't like, to be honest, but like that is my take. That doesn't mean that it's not an exceptional piece of filmmaking, right? And I think as an industry, we need to start being a lot more empathetic as well towards the people that work in these films, right?
Yeah.
Imagine giving someone feedback. It's being like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard.
Imagine
hard
just the one word responses of just the word trash getting sent to everyone on the crew and in the cast and or just not even like the gaffers. Like it's such a And you know what's funny is as often as like that's very much of a base standpoint to be like passing down information, like you're passing on like a tablet of like one of the fucking 10 commandments, to be like, this movie is trash, and then passing it on. And that's very much how it's like delivered. But then there's that whole idea of or like the worst one I hear every day is like, this movie was the worst movie I've ever seen in my whole life. And I'm like, oh, is this the first movie you've ever seen in your life, or are you just speaking out of your ass? You know what I mean? It's very much I don't know. It's very strange. It's very much like Villeneuve said it exactly the same way. Is the idea of when they keep asking him questions about fucking cinematic universes during all these press briefings, but it's like he said, none of his criticisms take away from the fact that like these movies are technical marvels. You know what I mean? It's the most expensive. Like they've earned the largest franchise in cinema history, and it's making all this money, and it's proof clearly in that they're not nothing. But he also had legitimate criticisms that I don't make a lot of regular videos. I'm very lazy like that, but I made that quick video talking about his comments, and a lot of the responses were, and it's a lot of the responses that a lot of auteurs get, which is like, who are you again? What do you don't even know what you're talking about. Be like, Taxi Driver. This guy made Taxi Driver. Ooh, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's that easy to sweep the leg of someone like Scorsese or Villeneuve and be like, they don't know what they're talking about clearly, because they gave a piece of legitimate criticism that, if you think about it, isn't a slight on you. It's very much like they attach their personal hearts to the movie or something, and if you criticize it or if you don't criticize it, they're personally offended. And it's a whole other level of the new age of like fandoms.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I just feel like a lot of these opinions and these very strong attacks, honestly, like personal attacks towards specific people, are very uninformed, right? So when we talk about a director like him, you can look at his actual filmography as a director, but no one looks at what he's done from a producer standpoint, where he's done so much great work in terms of advancing, diversity and inclusion. Not all of them have done that. Like there is a lot of criticism around specific directors that haven't quite used their platform in a way to better and improve diversity. But like, yeah, it's as you said, like they take one film or even one scene, they take one quote, right, that's like out of context. They're like, oh shit, I'm going to start a fucking riot just because I saw that tweet that has a quote like that's out of context, and that's what really frustrates me. And so this is why, like, I'm not 100% content with Instagram, obviously, because I mean, again, I have so many thoughts, like, and I work on social, and fucking Zuckerberg can basically fuck off. But the thing is, the upside of it is that it kind of gives me a way to expand on certain things in the captions, right, which you can't do in Twitter, like on Twitter, for example, right? That's kind of limited. And obviously, podcasts and a YouTube channel would be a way to expand on something, which is you can take one single quote from a director and try to dissect that in a 10-minute podcast episode or a video on YouTube. I'm not sure if anyone would watch that or like listen to it, but I think it's important to make sure that when we invite people to give us feedback or to critique something, they need to have the full picture. And that's what's so problematic with social these days. Like you're gonna watch the first 10 seconds of what Tim said. They're gonna have an opinion on it. Even, like, they're not gonna get to the end, so they're not gonna hear your entire like take on something. They're gonna watch the first 10 seconds. They're gonna be like, "Oh, this guy sucks because he said this one thing," and they're not giving you the time of day to like actually hear where you're coming from. So yeah, that's quite difficult to navigate. And again, I don't have the answer because we've all become so lazy because of social platforms. But yeah, I think in the context of film industry, and when it comes to film critics in general, and obviously I don't consider I don't know. I don't even know what the critic is these days. I mean, when I think of because it's such an important and serious word, I just think of someone, like LA Times and New Yorker
Yeah,
and The Guardian.
exactly. That's exactly that.
But at the end of the day, anyone can critique art. And I think it starts with that. It's almost like democratize the art form that is film criticism, because I see it as an art form, because essentially is whether it's writing, whether it's talking about it, like you produce art because you
It's an
interpret
interpretation.
something. Exactly. So I almost want people out there to take people like you and I don't say a bit more seriously, but give us the opportunity to actually allow us to talk about what we think about things. And it doesn't come from a place of arrogance, it comes from a place of authenticity. Like, if I don't connect with a certain film, it's not because I think it's awful or trash.
Yes.
I just didn't emotionally connect with it. And at the end of the day, and I feel like you and I had this, I don't say discussion because it was basically a couple of DMs probably, but like a while back, in terms of the importance of cinema in your own perspective. Like, for example, with myself, and that's something that I feel like you and I talked about in the past. I started being so interested in cinema and film from a very young age, when I was probably 8 or 10, just because I had a very hard time connecting with specific aspects of my life. And I don't know, like, let's call it reality, right? I was really struggling. And film was a way for me to actually understand my own reality. It was a way for me to realize that you might not be okay with your own like worldview or reality right now, but films can actually help you escape, and they can help you feel all sorts of things. They can help you feel not alone, they can help you relate, they can help you feel like there is someone out there who's feeling the same things that you are feeling. So sometimes it's as simple as that. Not everyone is going to connect to Dom's journey in Inception, because it's a very specific journey. It's a like white man grieves storyline arc. It's great, but like if you take a step back and if you think of it like a bit more in a bit, I don't know, I would say like in an abstract way, you realize that this is a story of grief, and everyone has experienced grief, right? So then it's up to you to interpret Nolan's vision of grief. Like, is this something that resonates with me, or do I feel like it's a bit generic, or do I feel like it tells a very specific perspective? That's up to interpretation. But at the end of the day, for me, like, one of the reasons that I love Inception is because I was able to connect to Dom grieving, right, DiCaprio's character, in a very profound way, even though I wasn't a white man, sure, and I didn't have a wife, and I don't have a wife.
Exactly.
But you can take one step back and just critique the portrayal of grief, and that was something that was very interesting to me. So if I am to consider myself a critic, I would be like, this is a great film because X, Y, and Z, and obviously have a post about Inception. But it's as simple as that sometimes, right? And I feel like every single one of us has a different perspective, because you're going to approach it based on your own, number one, experience, number two, expertise. I'm not a filmmaker, so like I couldn't tell if Inception is a great film from a filmmaking perspective. It looks great, sure, right? But my actual I would say vocabulary, it's very poor when it comes to critiquing something, when it comes from a purely craft perspective. And that's okay. I'm not here to critique like the lighting and the editing. I have some thoughts, but I'm not an actual professional, and I will leave that to the people that have actually taken the time to invest in learning the art of editing, right? Because I feel like we have an opinion about everything these days. But for me, it's as simple as, I love cinema So my question always is, do I love what I'm seeing on the big screen? And if I do, why is that? How does this come back to me? And I know you mentioned the word narcissist in the beginning, which is like, I think it's a bit unfair to you because you're not. But at the end of the day, I feel like
Uh,
we are inherently selfish people, and that's fine. Like
I
humans
think
are
it.
fucking selfish.
I think especially at this point, but it was also when I first started, I didn't talk about myself a lot. I didn't show myself a lot, and gradually over time, I've turned it more into. I mean, I don't have any here actually, but I don't have them with me. I have stickers with my face on them, for Christ's sake. You know,
I
like
love that. Yeah,
I like at Comic-Con, I was giving them out
you were giving them out.
cosplayers. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's become that. Like if you told me 4 years ago that eventually I'd be doing that, I would I don't think I'd be a fan of myself now, because it seems very anti what I was trying to do, which was at the time solely uh put up not like, I mean, not opinions or analysis or anything, but like just express the love for movies and for specific movies and specific genres. But as it's gone on, it's become much more of a like a personality thing, where if you see my page, it's very, I mean, except for like stuff I tell my therapist, it's very much, and even sometimes then stuff I tell my therapist, it's very much one-to-one digital version,
Yeah.
where I'm much more personal on, and that allows me to give much more personal takes and get into exactly the idea of like, if I love something, why do I love it, and if I don't love it, then why? You know, break. You can. It's there's always a way to splinter off and express exactly what it is that you're feeling. Like, and that's also kind of the best part of it, which is why it's like everyone. The idea of like everyone has this instant access. Everyone is a critic of everything all the time, forever. You know what I mean? It's officially. There's never, like when I was growing up, a movie critic, I saw movie reviews in the newspapers.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, you know, haven't been long enough to not witness before the internet, but I mean, like, my dad would read the newspaper in the morning, and then he would give me the pages that had like big reviews of whatever, and I would read, and then I would see like, you know, by this person, and that was a movie critic. The idea of like, they go around, they carry a pad with them in the theater. Yeah. And at this point, I mean, it's like mutated, but not like mutated has a very strange connotation to it. Straight up, it's clustered to a point where it's like, if it used to be a marble, now it's like a planet. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Am I talking? Am I saying gibberish?
Yeah, no. I think it's a very interesting way of putting it. Yeah. I don't have one word for it. Pivoted? No, that's not a word. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of taken different shape and form. Yeah. For sure. Okay, I feel like we have to start. Okay, you said Dune yesterday.
You know what? Yeah. We had a great. You know what? I actually am so glad that this happened, because I'm going to be re-listening to this a lot. But let's move on to some Dune talk, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
how
you said yesterday, so you have.
Yeah, I know. Well, because I knew having you on, I want to talk about a bunch of stuff, especially after the last couple of posts you put up. But yeah, how good was that fucking movie?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I have to say, I only watched the trailer by accident.
You don't like to watch trailers often?
I never watch trailers. Yeah, I'm the worst.
No, I get that. I actually appreciate
the thing is, I've been burned trailers so many times. Yeah, I've been burned by trailers so many times where I'm like, fuck this, it's not worth the effort. I'm mostly going to watch trailers when they come from Nolan, just because I know he has a very like, he has 100% of creative control when it comes to his own trailers. And the thing is, obviously sometimes I will go to the theater and I will see the trailers, and that's fine. It's not like I'm going to close my eyes. It's fine. I just kind of avoid them. And the thing is, I did watch one Dune trailer a few days before actually watching it, and it was such a bad trailer. I'm not sure who did that.
The second trailer was terrible.
Probably. Yeah, I was like,
The
what
first
the
trailer is the
fuck?
first shot that had the last shot of the trailer was the show of the worm, but the second trailer had a lot of people criticizing it, but also the majority, like 50%, were people criticizing the CGI, which you can never take seriously because it's a trailer; it'll never be finished. But the structure, there's always there's a sense of storytelling even in trailers, and it was very muddled. The second trailer, it was very all
Yeah,
over the
yeah,
place, and it did not represent the film at all.
exactly. So I had quite a few people saying, "Oh shit, that doesn't look great." Like,
Yeah, I remember.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and the thing is, I was like, fine, I do trust Villeneuve at the same
Mhm.
time. Every single thing that I've watched from him is just like has been incredible for me anyway. I just feel like he has a very interesting way of taking a specific genre in usually that is sci-fi, and he just kind of boils it down to a very human story, which I think is quite like it takes a lot of effort just because sci-fi is just so abstract in so many different ways
Mhm.
and can be quite cold. um and yeah, I watched it and it was everything that I expected in every single way. I didn't get bored, which is a very big like thing for me because I feel like I have some sort of undiagnosed ADHD where it's kind of like phase out, and I was like,
Yeah.
none of that. um I read your post and I have to agree 100%. Like when it came out of the theater, it was like, this is a Rebecca Ferguson film.
I'm
Like,
so happy. Yeah, right.
on
She
that's your
fucking
film.
murdered. She
That's your
murdered
film.
it.
It's your film. It's your film. And
And
I was
I
like,
think that no, you go.
no, I was gonna say, I feel like I have to watch like her entire filmography because I only know her from Mission Impossible. And I feel like I've seen her in a couple of indie films, but that's it. I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm such a big fan of yours right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I don't know. I think it was mostly. I think everyone did great. I mean, if I can pick out even like the minuscule performances, they sold
Mhm, mhm.
their characters very well. But something about I felt her throughout the movie.
Mhm.
She's
Yeah.
very much. Also, she plays. There's very few relationships in the film. So they playing off the mother and the son, and having her play this maternal role that is also so distant to everything at the same time. I don't know. It's very strange. You're right. Villeneuve has this very great way of turning sci-fi stories human, and the best I think sci-fi films and stories are the ones that examine like current humanity rather
Mhm.
than tell like a story. And I know that I get shit all the time for it, but like I walked out of the theater and someone was like, "This is the new Star Wars," and that bothered me so
Uh,
much. And
no.
it's not that it's because it's not because I'm also not that great of a fan of Star Wars. It's more of just because it's like lasers and space. And it's the new Star Wars.
And
I
sand. I mean, that's
Yeah,
it.
it's literally it. It's the tiniest little like floss in between the two movies to be like, this is going to be the new Star Wars franchise, and it's like one, God, I fucking hope not, because then in 30 years they're gonna keep making these like these half thought out fucking like hour half movies. I have to not let my hate for Star Wars spill into my love for this movie. It's very much like she is what differentiated I think the movie from, because her performance is so human. Those moments where she's like alone and breaking down, like when she's walking in the hallway after that the box scene, and it's very much she is. That's what, like I said, I felt everything through her. That's how it felt.
She was dancing with an Oscar nomination for like 120, well, 80
Yeah,
minutes straight. I mean, I don't know how long the film is.
seriously.
Um, no, yeah, I agree. And I haven't read the book, so I'm not quite sure like how close it
Me
was with the
neither.
adaptation, but I also trust, I was able to watch a Q&A with Villeneuve right after the film. It was like a pre-recorded one where he would kind of talk about how big of a fan he is. I kind of trust him in that regard. But I would say in the context of like the final scene, or at least like the end, which really stuck with me, because obviously I knew that this was part one, like going into the film. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
how is he going to end it? And then, you mentioned this earlier, how he's been asked so many questions around like Marvel and then the MCU and all of this fucking whatever things that are irrelevant, basically.
I think I'm a bad influence on you.
No, you're not. But the thing is, I was just like, you're asking like you have him for 15 minutes and you're asking him about fucking Marvel. Like, honestly,
Like,
he's such a fountain of knowledge, and you're asking about stupid fucking questions. So there was someone, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. I don't remember where exactly. He was asked about, oh, why doesn't Dune have a post-credit
credit
scene?
scene.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there, because the final scene intended to have one very specific emotion, like, and hopefully evoke that emotion for audiences, and that's
Mhm.
it. And for me, like, the way he phrased it was so interesting, because as dumb as it sounds, I never thought about, like, from a director's perspective, what is it that you're actually intending to do in the very final scene, right? Because it's like the final scene, and I don't want to spoil it for people because they might be listening and they haven't seen the film, but it's like something, like, whatever, it ends in a way that's like, okay, part two is coming, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of, yeah. And we are so accustomed to, with Marvel and a bunch of other films that have post-credit scenes these days, to wait for something else that's going to give us 13 like 30 more seconds of like, let me, like, give me my
Yeah.
fix. Like, I need this 30 like seconds. It's like, no, this is how it's supposed to end, because this is what it was supposed to happen. And like, if you're around, come back in 2 years and see part two. That's it.
You're
And
you're
that's
reading
beautiful
my
way.
mind.
Yeah. Okay.
You're reading my mind, and it's amazing because it's so frustrating. One, you're asking, you know what it is? It's like half of it is they want him to say something so that they can make that their clickbait title so that people can get
Right.
angry off the
Exactly.
title. And
Yeah.
two, it's like, you know what? I mean, it's like ask anybody in the 50s and 60s and 70s a question. It's going to be about a Western, like, or you know what I mean? It's what populates the culture is going to be at the top of everyone's mind all the time. And it's unfortunate because then you have 4-minute interviews of him trying to explain his way around end credit scenes. But I agree. I think he described it perfectly. The last, it's like a sucker punch in the end of the movie. It's very much like it wants you to go away feeling a very specific feeling, and it does. It's a feeling of momentum, and it's a feeling of and you know what? You could have taken the last 30 seconds of the movie and probably put it in the middle of the credits, and it would have had the same fucking effect. It's just a lot of this stuff is like, I've been complaining about this a lot more recently, is the idea of like having to sell your stuff now. Like if you're a movie like a Marvel movie or a giant blockbuster of a franchise, and if you, it's no longer in the early days of like a teaser where it mattered, where it was like something where it was something unorthodox, and it was like, whoa, did you see that they released that extra 30 seconds? That's never been done. That's pretty crazy. We better catch the next thing. But at this point, it's the selling of like, I hate reading headlines like, you're not going, the shocking end credit scene of this fucking movie. And it's like, well, now what do you want me to walk away from your movie feel? I mean, it's why I get frustrated with like the majority of these movies where it's like, all right, well, pick something, identify with something from, not identify, wrong word, isolate something from these movies that meant something to you. And it'll always be people being like, oh, when they showed at the end that, this character came on and he's from another movie, and now the next movie's going to set up. It's like, all right, but what about from the movie? What's a great moment from the movie? And it's going to be the most popular moment, obviously. But I mean, it's very much that idea of it's you go to see the next movie to get excited for the next movie and then for the next one. And it's very much like getting your next fucking fix. That's a great analogy. And it's so, I don't even know. It's like unenthusiastic. It's like I can sit through all the credits and even since I was little, I would always pick out the names and I would write little stories and I would use names from the credits of people. But it was very much like, you sit through to the end and then it's like, oh shit, that's the only reason why I came to the movie theater tonight. I better go now.
Yeah.
This last 45 seconds that sets up the next 10 years. That's the only reason why I came out tonight. I didn't even have to see this movie that I'm not going to think about tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. The thing is, I used to be supportive of post-credit scenes for the sole reason that I was like, okay, if this gives people like 5-10 people the opportunity to read through the the actual credits, that's fine. But then I was like, doesn't mean anything. Like, you're not gonna remember any fucking name like 5 seconds later. But like, that was my rationale at the time. And I feel like the sole purpose of a post-credit scene these days, and obviously my mind goes to Marvel just because they're the ones that kind of, were they the ones that started it? Well, at least made it popular.
They definitely pioneered it into popularity.
Yeah, I feel like they just serve as ads for the next Marvel film. It's as cheap as that. And it's the same, and to make it like, and maybe that's a bit of an extension, but like, even like whatever comes out of Disney Plus these days, every single show, because like something else is gonna come next, it's almost like these films, these shows are just ads for the next thing. Just ads. It's like,
exactly.
We're gonna need to hook you in to see, like, or it's so exclusionary because like, oh, so I can't see WandaVision without having seen the whole fucking whatever Avengers, like phase 1, phase 2, whatever.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. Like, everything just comes together. And like, I think with Dune, it's like the same thing. If you were to have, as you said, the last 30 seconds in the post-credit scene, it would serve as, oh shit, like you have to stick for it because part 2 is coming. But the thing is, he made it clear so many times, I had no idea whether part 2 was going to get financed. So,
and that's a very also like strange thing to hear from someone like him, who's been able to ride on the idea of, I mean, like, it's like well known that like Blade Runner 2049 bombed at the box office, which is so fucking unfortunate. And I like that, at least that, hearing him more in the news, more people are kind of like this, discovering him. I like watching friends of mine talk about, like, I just watched this movie last night. I'm like, yeah, that's great. You should have been with me in theaters when it came out, so that there would have been at least somewhat of a punch. And that's the interesting part, is that it's very much this idea of, if there isn't that extra layer to it, no one kind of gives a shit. If there isn't that extra little bit at the end, and it's been taught at this point for like almost 10 years, like with the idea, it's very unfortunate. And to hear someone like Villeneuve say, like, oh yeah, and he talked about it. I remember months ago, I posted him saying how he decided, if he got the opportunity to make it into 2 movies. And I was like, that sounds like that sounds very possible. Just the concept of like, oh, you're making a franchise. Yeah, they're going to give you a shit ton of money because they want to cash in on the $1 billion that those guys are making. But it's so strange to hear someone like him say, well, and seeing the great cry from it. I mean, I said earlier, it's making a fair amount of money in theaters right now, which is great. Which I'm so glad that, as much as I admired Nolan for putting Tenet out, like September of last year, it's like, dude. And you know what? He's Christopher Nolan, so he's fine. Like, he's already working on, and he like shopped around Oppenheimer, and he's fine, and that's in pre-production, and that's getting started. But if he weren't Christopher Nolan, you're never getting that money again.
Yeah, no, with Tenet, like timing was very unfortunate. I feel like if it had come out this year,
Yeah,
it would have been a very different story. But like when
absolutely.
it came out, because people like came, the thing is, we also like when it comes to something coming out in like in the big screen, we need to think about it in terms of like, okay, someone's going to watch it and they need to be in a very specific and particular headspace. And
Yeah,
we had all come out of the fucking pandemic. Honestly, I feel like we were all so fucking burned. The only thing we wanted to watch at this point was like fucking Godzilla versus Kong, like Fast and Furious
yeah,
35, like that.
yeah.
Like we didn't want to go anywhere beyond that from a brain cell
As
standpoint. We're like,
complex, yeah.
we're burned. Yeah, like Tenet came and fried their fucking brains. It's like, did I really go to the cinema to watch this thing to get fried
Exactly.
my brain, even though my brain has been fucking fried for the past 15
Tenet,
months?
Tenet was a narrative. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's almost like exhausting. Tenet was a narrative, gut punch as well as an auditory gut punch. I mean, compared to like
Yeah,
you hear
exactly.
about all the actors saying that they didn't understand it while reading the script, and I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then you hear about people going, yeah, and I couldn't hear anything the entire movie, and it's like, oh, so this is not the movie for 2020 at all.
I mean,
That would
that's
have been
another.
very interesting though
Yeah, yeah.
if he had, along with everybody, pushed it forward. But he was, and like I said, I admired the idea of like, you know what, at this point, I want to move on to the next thing or whatever. Who fucking knows how we planned it? But I at the same time, I think that it would have. I think about like interesting now if it would have came out in like the last couple months if he hadn't. I wonder how different the talk around it would have been.
Yeah, yeah. I think it have been very, yeah, very different because it was the only big film that was that actually came out. Yeah, with the exception of, honestly, I think Godzilla versus Kong actually came out like similar, like, around the similar time frame,
It
which
came
was
out.
very
Godzilla vs Kong came out in March of this year.
Oh, really? I mean,
Yeah,
anyway, yeah. Okay, so it was like the narrative was like, oh, Tenet
yeah,
didn't save the cinema. It was, Godzilla. It's like great,
yeah,
and it was so reductive, obviously. But one, he didn't have any competition, so it felt like the entire state of cinema rested on his shoulders, which wasn't fair.
yeah.
And then you know how media loves a fucking villain, so they painted him as such.
And
I
people suddenly who were already disregarding, like, taking care of themselves or wearing a mask or anything like that, all that shit, were suddenly like, oh, so Christopher Nolan wants me to go spend money and to get sick possibly. It's like,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. I mean, he's not telling you to just, yeah, exactly. So the thing is, it was they took so many things out of context and then it turned into this fucking seed hole, which I feel like, and I was having this conversation with a few people these past few days in terms of like, okay, what is he going to do with his next film? Because I am someone, and I make it quite clear, like I have worked with, I don't want to say him because I haven't worked with him, but like I have worked in Dunkirk, so I have worked in this releases. So he's a director that feels quite personal to me, and to see him painted in that kind of light doesn't feel right to me.
it's
And
infuriating.
yeah, because number one, not a single human should have to take an entire industry on their shoulders. That's not on them.
Yeah,
I do share a certain level of criticism in terms of the timing. I agree it wasn't great, and I'm sure he had control over that. And I think looking back, he probably realized that this wasn't great timing.
mhm.
Um, but number three, it's almost like, okay, so the media has spent so much time painting him as this sort of like villain, and how like he doesn't care about COVID and like
Yeah,
fuck everything, and I just want to do my, which isn't fair. So with his new film, I feel like he's looking for a certain kind of rebrand, I have to say, and I think he needs
yeah,
one. I'm not saying he's doing it consciously, but the thing is, you know how people are going to talk about like the Dark Knight trilogy and they're gonna shit on it, they're gonna love it. Like there's a lot of debate, Inception, Interstellar, like all of these films. But the thing is, when it comes to Dunkirk in particular, it's the one film that has been so universally been loved and admired. Number one, from a storytelling point of view. Number two, from a filmmaking point of view. Sound wasn't great, but that's like a Nolan thing. And I'm like, you need to rethink your sound, like your strategy, because it's not quite working. I agree. So I feel like with his new project, he's going back to Dunkirk, right? Which is like, I don't want to say it's safe, but it's such an important and historical topic.
It's comfortable,
It's comfortable, and I think he's gonna find a way to push the boundary, but it's something that will get him under the light that he's been usually exposed to, which is much more favorable, because Tenet was such a was a clusterfuck for him.
It's so disappointing.
It is very disappointing. So we love you, Grace, wherever you may be. So
and
Emma,
and so that's what's very interesting is it's funny. I haven't met a lot of people, like spoken to a lot of people who have seen Dunkirk, which is very strange to me.
Oh wow! How come?
It's what I don't know.
It was massive in London, so
of course, That's
UK.
what
It's interesting to hear. Maybe it wasn't a big.
I think it was just they came out 2017, right?
Yes.
I don't know. You know why? I think it was also everyone. You know what? Like I'll always talk about like how it was very hooked on to the.
My drink, so don't
sure. It was attached onto the. It followed Interstellar, and everyone will always love Interstellar, and I understand that sense of appreciation. But like Interstellar will always be. You know what? You said it actually earlier, like early on, and it made me think of that. Is like if I can think of 3 films from 3 directors that are their like most talked about movies, other than like Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, it would be Nolan's Interstellar, Fincher's Fight Club, and Tarantino's Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
they're very much the same movies, not content-wise, obviously, but in the idea of these are the movies that people will always be like, my favorite movie on the world is Interstellar. And it's like, you know what? I get that. I appreciate every level of this movie, and I can pick away things from these movies that I love, and maybe some things that kind of bug me. But at the same time, like my favorite Nolan movie is The Prestige, and I think the other day was like the 20 something anniversary of it, or not 20, 10, 15 something or whatever. And it's like I never hear people talk about The Prestige either, and it's my favorite Nolan film. And I will always, it's the first movie that I remember watching and immediately rewatching. I finished the credits and then immediately I restarted it because I was like, oh, this is just every level of this, from performances to everything. But yeah, how did we diverged from Rebecca Ferguson?
I mean, the thing is, when you're having conversation with me, it's always gonna go back to Nolan somehow.
You know what? What else are podcasts for?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, and I have no idea because obviously 15 years ago, I was young, very young.
I was gonna say, if you tell me you're not like right now 23 years old, I'm gonna be suppressed.
I'm 28. No, I'm turning 29 in December, so I'm very fucking old. So 15 years ago, so I was young, kind of like 15 almost. I'm not sure, because I agree with you. It's such a good film, but at the same time, I feel like it's one of the most forgettable ones from.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the thing is, I remember I was having a conversation with a friend probably a year ago, where I was like, we're talking about Nolan, and I was like, oh, you know what? Nolan has never done a period film. Dunkirk hadn't, like, what was very fresh.
Yeah.
And he was like, what are you talking about? He's on Prestige. I'm like, oh shit, like that's his film, right?
It's the turn of the century. Yeah.
Film that is so good, but somehow it kind of lost the plot from a marketing standpoint. Maybe they didn't
Mhm,
know how
mhm,
to promote it, because the thing is that the cast is there. You can't argue that you don't know the cast.
mhm.
Maybe it was very difficult to promote at the time, and yeah, it kind of um because it was standalone, it kind of
It
lost
also
its
happened.
voice
It also
in,
happened
yeah,
right
Dark
after
Knight. Exactly.
Batman
Yeah,
Begins. Yeah, it was in between that
exactly.
that chunk, which makes complete sense. You know,
Yeah. Oh, but this guy was just pumping out hits.
like unstoppable. And if it weren't for, I mean, a global pandemic, I think that Tenet would have been received way differently than it was.
Mm, yeah, yeah. If the thing is, and I do have, and obviously this is a year-old criticism, because there was so much conversation about Tenet in general, but like it's a film that kind of grows on you as you tend to rewatch it, and not
Mhm.
everyone's gonna do that, but I think it's one of those films. Um, but I have to say, like, my main criticism when it comes to that film is uh Elizabeth the biggest character, and like how
Mhm.
she's written. And generally, like, I don't love how Nolan writes women characters, but like, even that felt like that character in particular, I was like, what the fuck is your purpose? Like, what the fuck are you doing in this film?
Yeah.
Like, what's your motivation? What's your narrative? Like, what do we care about you? um so obviously, yeah, it's not my favorite Nolan film, but I feel like it has so much. And that's what I was talking about in terms of us being a bit more empathetic with the entire team that works on these films. Like, there is so much greatness in that film. Like, even just putting it together, it's like it takes so much talent, where it's like, you can hate the script, you can hate the, like, the storyline, you can hate the characters, but like, there is so much talent that you're just like, fuck me, this is an achievement.
Yeah.
You
Oh
can't
yeah. I
argue
mean,
that.
but also there's always going to be that idea. Like, I don't think that it's almost like the way that some people can't understand like statistics of more than 1,000. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you tell
Yeah,
someone like you have a 1 in a million chance, and people are going to be like, one, did you say? It's very much
yeah.
uh it's like Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber, like, you're telling me there's a chance. But
Yeah.
and if you show someone, like, I guarantee you the average person it sees that slop of names of everyone, of every single person it took to make the movie that they just saw. They're
Yeah.
never gonna fully understand, like if you put every name into a warehouse and every person was in that warehouse, be like, holy shit, that's a little, that's for me at least, like, I'm sure for you it's moving to see
Mhm. Mhm.
how many human beings it goes into. And and I don't think that uh I don't know, and that's, maybe that's pretentious to say, but I don't think that the majority of people think about that, and that's fine. You know what? Like, it doesn't put you above to be like, oh, I saw you, Nancy, whatever, and to think about who was this and who was that. But it
Mhm.
plays
Mhm.
into that idea of like when people blame like a director for a movie, and it's like, do you think that, like, do you know how much a director has to do
Yeah.
with the movie making process? Most
Mhm.
people, I think, genuinely, like, they'll think I mean, unless it's Scorsese and I mean, well, yeah, but unless it's Tarantino and he writes it and directs it and does all that. But if it's like someone who gets a script and then they direct the movie, and suddenly if the movie doesn't do well, that's tacked on to their career for the rest of their life
Mhm.
as like a bad film, and it'll always be brought up no matter what. And it's like, do you understand how many, it's a giant fucking puzzle, and you're going after like the corner piece. It makes no sense to really, I don't know. It's
I
frustrating
agree.
to see, especially.
I agree. I think people put too much pressure on, like, on the director, and I also feel like on the flip side, they also give them too much credit,
Oh yeah,
right?
exact same, exact same.
So the thing is, the best example that I can find, and that might be controversial, but I feel like you can take it, the thing is, like, if you think about cancel culture, right, as a whole, and you take a director like Woody Allen, which obviously he's just like, he's disgraced, like we have so much evidence to make a claim about like his wrongdoings, like it's there. And one argument that, you know, film fans tend to say is like, okay, let's cancel every Woody Allen film. Let's not show it to film students. Let's ban it from the cinema. Let's not even acknowledge that they are there. And the thing is, like, sure, cool, let's go with that. That's great. But at the same time, if you were to do that, then
I had to re-add her. Well, just you and me, guys. Until, you know, I guess that makes it more of a podcast, right? This is going to be like a 2-hour podcast. So, you know, how you guys doing? I haven't done a solo episode in a while. I will get back to them eventually. I like talking with people, though. You know what I mean? Come on. I like talking with people. Oh, no, did it stop? Okay, it's still recording. We're good. We're good. She's coming back. She doesn't know why it canceled out. Maybe her computer or something. But this is so cool. I love talking with someone about stuff like this. I know 13 people are going to listen to this, but if you do listen to this, if you're listening to this right now, high five your phone. I'll high five. Sweet.